Hi everybody. You may have noticed in the assignment this week that I have a form. And I'm going to take this form and we're going to do the homework together. Okay? Our job is to keep it simple and get this stuff into a database. Nothing more, nothing less. So how are we going to do that? And just as a precursor, we do have the database course and there's some overlap here. But we're going to take this one much slower because that entire course is dedicated to the database, and this will be more about how PHP can help us get things into a database, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is literally take this form and I'm going to save it, and we can call it, I don't know, let's call it registration.php. And I'm simply going to put it in my applications, and we're going to make it work inside MAMP, our local server. Okay, so here's our htdocs, and there's registration. Okay, great. So I'm going to close everything out. Everything's gone. And now I'm solely going to work with this file and my local host. Right now we see registration here. Our job is to get everything from this form into a database. Well, we haven't created our table yet, so my next thing I'm going to do is hit a / and go into PHP my admin. This assumes that we've already got the server working, so if you're on XAMPP, open up your XAMPP and just make sure that this is going to be opened, and it is. So here's my PHP my admin. I'm going to go ahead and get everything working here, and these are my databases. Okay. I'm going to click a new database. I'm going to make this work pretty simple. I'm going to go click new, and we'll do WebD 166. So now I'm going to do nothing but WebD 166. And here you see that I have no tables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this home page from localhost, and we're going to look at registration.php, and now we're going to make our table fit the data here. This is the first thing, so I'm going to need a name field. I'm going to need a gender field. I'm going to need a year in school field. I'm going to need a comments field. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm also going to need an ID field. That ID field is going to be primary key auto increment. So I'm going to go ahead and make 5. And since our let me close out some of the MAMP pop-ups here. But since let me find our section here. Let's go to localhost and registration. Since our registration has a theme of school, let's call this students. So this will be students. Okay, and we have 5 columns. So when you're just getting started out, if you haven't had 153, the class yet, or the database course, or you have no experience, always count the number of items you're going to store. You wouldn't want to have 2 fields for gender, male and female. You would just have a field for gender. And we would put the data that the user entered into that field. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bits of information go in. But always add 1, and that's why I have 5. Okay. So right now I'm going to do this. I'm going to do ID. It has to be an integer. I'll put 5 digits, but it can be as many as you want. This is the length number of digits, so this can go up to 99,999. I'll keep my defaults. Usually with collation, I do Latin, Swedish, CI. You want to have a CI here for case insensitive. That'll help your search functionality. But those things get covered in depth in the database course. The only thing I need here is to index my ID and have a primary key and an auto increment. So those 2 things will allow me to have a number that relates to each record, and no number will ever be repeated. The next, I'll need a name field for what I'm storing, and in this case it's full name. Full name can be variable character. Variable character has a limit of 255 characters. Next, I'll need gender, year in school, and this can be varchar as well, 255, and lastly I'll have comments. And comments will take a text area. So this will be up to 65,000 characters. As you see from my HTML, it's not. This is just a simple stuff. We're just trying to get data from point A to point B, from the user into our database. So now I have that. So once I do this, I can click Create or Save, and now I have my students. So what we want to do here is get our values from the form into the database. So there's two different engines. The book goes in depth about MySQLi. I'm going to show you an example of PHP data objects. And again, this we can go into far more in depth in the database class, but right now I'm just going to create a connection. So I'm inside php.net, and what we're going to do is have our connection right here. Okay, so what this is it connects to the database. Now we haven't covered object-oriented programming yet. We've covered functions. But this is new PDO object, PHP data object, and this is our connection string. Our local host is our host. Our database name in this case is going to be WebD166. That was the database we created at the top of the video here. So when we look at this, we can we have our table called students. Our database is 166, and when we go to MySQL, we can actually see our username and password. So right now I just clicked on the user table inside MySQL, and here you see user root. Root is localhost. So inside password here, generally, if you're using MAMP, the default password would be, whoops, these need to be in quotes because they're strings, but the pass would be either empty or root itself. Okay, and now we've connected. Okay, so my form action is going to be registration.php, and my method will be equal to post. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is do the same thing we did at the beginning of this course, is run our conditional inside the submit button to make sure that that value is equal to the submit button value. So if the submit is equal to register, then I can go ahead and work with this, okay? And our goal here is just to get the data and insert it. Okay? So I'm going to grab my full name. Okay. I'm going to grab my gender. Just like that. I'm going to grab my year in school. We want to keep it really simple at this point. We don't want anyone discouraged by this because this is one of the best things that PHP does. It communicates with a database so well. So I'm going to do comments. Now notice how I have a capital letter down here. I'm going to change that. You don't have to, as long as they match. I'm just trying to reduce my complexity of this. Now that we have this, we can write an insert statement. So the way PDO works is we have this handle that equals the connection to the database. And what I can do is create some variable, I'll call it insert, and it will be equal to dbh. And this right here is an instantiation mark of methods that are part of this object. So I'm basically going to prepare a statement here. It's going to be equal to insert into, and we'll go back to our table that we created, which was called students. I'm going to go to WebD166 at the bottom here. And once I do, hopefully students, we'll go ahead and click that. Screencast-O-Matic is kind of getting in the way right here. But now I have my table names. So they're right in front of me. I can insert into students. And then I can list my fields. Full name. I'm not going to list ID because ID is going to be auto-populated based on the number of the insert. So this is year in school and comments. Oops, I need to separate each of these with a single quote. So I've inserted into students those grouped values, which are the field names, with the following values, which is going to be full name, gender, and they have to have the variables because the variables are what we assigned right above. And then I'll have scalar year, and then scalar comments. Now, these all need to be in single quotes. So now that I'm confident with that, I can go ahead and lift my code and insert into students those values. I can close out my string like this, and now I have a prepared statement. Lastly, I can take the insert value and have another instantiation mark and use the executive method that's built into the database, and that's it. So now I can just say echo record inserted. So this is a very low-level video. I don't want to get more complicated than this, but all we did was take a form, identified the elements we wanted to store, create the table inside PHPMyAdmin, and now we're going to insert and then troubleshoot. So this is registration.php. I'm going to hit refresh, and now I'll do Chris Secor. I'm a male, I'm a sophomore, test, and we'll hit register, and it says record inserted. I'll go to my database, click browse, and I don't have anything in there. So now we need to troubleshoot, okay? And our troubleshooting is going to be pretty easy. What we need to do is do a print r, insert, and then we'll do error info. And I want to see exactly what I did wrong. So I save it, I go back, I hit refresh, and we'll go ahead and do the same values we did before. We'll do sophomore, test, register. And now it says incorrect integer value male for column gender at row 1. So that's a structural issue. I'm going to go to my structure, and you see gender is set to be an integer, but it can't be an integer because we're inserting an actual name. So I'll go ahead and edit that, and we'll change it to varchar 255. How silly of me. And now it seems like everything should fall into place. Now I can hit refresh, and now I can go Chris Secor, male, junior, test. Hit refresh. Now we have an empty array on our errors. Records inserted. Now I can click browse, and I should see Chris Secor, male, junior, test. And last thing I'm going to do is go back and comment out my error handling. Anyway, that's how you can create a quick form, a quick table, and put data in that form.